Welcome back to Optimum Live. We're on to, what are we, episode 16 now. And I think this one's probably going to be a start of a bit of a mini-series that we'll interject at various episodes as we go. It's client stories, because Optimum have got a lot of clients in different industries with different challenges that they faced, objectives that they've needed to tackle, etc. And so we're going to cover stories because it can help. And I'm speaking as a business owner myself at Visual PR Productions, knowing that I don't always automatically know those answers. I'm not an accountant, and to have that help to guide us through as a business is incredibly helpful. And that's what we're going to touch on today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guests for this one. Well, co-host, I think I should call you.
Mike got a promotion.
You have, yes, mate. Well, you've got to be a co-host for this one. You're not the guest in this one, because the guest is actually Graham Leafield from Gel Studios. Hello, sir.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Obviously, we've got some weird synergy here in the fact that you're a client of mine for content like this. I'm a client of yours on the finance side. I'm a client of yours.
Yeah.
With the websites and
we've been a client of yours.
Exactly.
It's just a lovely
incestuous. Exactly. But the real focus of this one is that obviously you are a client with Optimum.
Yep.
Now, that's a fairly recent happenstance, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably the past 9 months or so. I think it has been.
Is it really as long as that now?
Yeah, but I think we've been courting one another for a bit longer than that. I think that's something we'll touch on. You know, change in accountants, that could be something which is deemed scary. But I just knew that it was something we had to do. We'll touch on it later. But yeah, 9 months as an active client.
Kids on the way.
Yeah. Kids on the way. Happy relationship. Yeah. Got a ring on the finger now. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a really good 9 months. Really good 9 months.
Although saying about that, congratulations on your engagement to Carly.
Thank you very much. That was October last year now. I don't know where that's gone.
Jeepers, I can't believe how quickly the time's flying.
I know, it's flown by.
We're about to finish another financial year end going into April.
Yeah, and it's quite apt, isn't it? Like, we are approaching the end of the financial year, and it's those sort of milestones, certainly through a business's sort of, yearly calendar, that kind of make you take stock. And that's kind of what prompted this conversation, really. We had one of our end of period review meetings yesterday. And it was, I said to you in a text, my best meeting of 2025 so far for me, and something that genuinely I needed a good meeting from, because it's been a tough couple of months for us. We'll talk more about it later, but the relationship's really good, really, really good.
I mean, we'll let this kind of, as we know, the design of this to let it take its own course, its own life to some extent, but to make sure that Mike doesn't just get to sit there and drink water for the whole time. The key thing that you, and I'm going to even say that you enjoy, not just that you pride yourself on profession. No, you do. That you get to speak to this variety of business owners in the different industries, and everybody's a little bit different, even if they're in the same industry, to sort of listen to what they're doing, why they're doing it, then put the thinking cap on about, hang on, are you aware of this, etc.
Yeah, I think it's the benefit of being in this role is that we look after all the different industries. So there are things that will happen to different industries over a different period of time. So something that would be now might be affect a different business in a year's time. So when they start to face those struggles, we can go, well, hang on, we've seen this, maybe look at this and create a conversational point about it. But the thrill is just to see businesses thrive, and really sort of help them out and get to the next stage. That's definitely where the joy comes from the role.
And that, I guess one of your biggest jobs is you're like a translator. Yeah. To some extent. I think we were talking about this as well, Graham, is that they can talk in their language. You'll go, what?
Yeah, it might as well be a foreign one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is something which was a key point for me, sort of moving to the guys here. Our business was going through a period of growth. We had challenges with regards to truly understanding what our numbers were. So when you see stuff in, the BBC, or you see stuff, through social media, and it's like, look, if you're a small business owner, there's a way that you can save money. Well, you're immediately going to pay attention to that, right? Pennies count. And then when it's like, okay, I'm going to do the responsible thing. I'm going to talk to my accountant. I'm going to ask them to validate this for me. And when you get loads of jargon speak come back. And that's not really, I don't think, any poor reflection on accountants, but it's just that moment to realize actually dealing with people, not businesses in that moment. What I found for me with traditionally my old accountant was, I'd go into a conversation with like, there's a great opportunity here. I'd come out of it actually maybe feeling a little bit stupid because I don't understand what they're saying. And then I wouldn't carry on with that avenue of stuff. So I come away a little bit deflated. Yeah. One of the joys about the conversations that we have, is that, whether he does it consciously or not, I don't know, but it's kind of like, right, what kind of levels Graham at with this stuff? What's his understanding? And I put it across in a way that he gets it. And then equally, we've got the relationship and the rapport to be like, do you get that? And I don't feel bad when I go, actually, could you explain that again for me?
It's reading, you can tell whether someone's understood it by the look in their eye. Yeah. They either got the fear of God or they're excited. And when you're saying something and you can see that, there's a bit of a confused look, then that's the opportunity to say, let me try it a different way. Yeah. And I think that's the most important bit. Quite often you get people to just, here's the information, just chuck it at you. Yeah. And hope for the best. Whereas I'm quite passionate of, like, I want to kind of teaching. We've got the knowledge. Yeah. So I actually want you guys to understand it, because also the more you guys understand it in the long run, the more confidence you either have to ask us the questions, or be that you actually know the answer anyway.
Yeah. But you know the difference of what is right to educate us on so that we know it and can do it going forward, and what's like, don't worry about that, we got you. Yeah. Because as fellow business owners, Graham, is that we don't have the time, the space to be able to understand everything about that finance side.
I mean, one of my takeaways from that exact point is, you see it in somebody's eyes. So, you guys know we invested really heavily in our office space. The reason for that was that we can have online chats, we can have online conversations, but actually it's the stuff where you're offline, where you see a colleague that might be sort of, I don't know, tapping their keyboard, or they might be, doing things like that. You don't get that with remote relationships.
Agreed.
Every single visit, or once a year visits. Every single time we've had one of these reviews, these guys have come to my office, and we sit in my little room, the decision room, and we chat about stuff. Then there's equally all like the breakfast stuffs and everything that you do, to bring people together. And obviously you've got, you equally as in your organization have invested in a place to bring people together.
2 places.
And it makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
And I think that's definitely it, is you can have a Teams call, a phone call, but you'll only ever talk about the thing that you phoned up about. Yeah. Whereas, you sit with and again, last week, sat with a client, very typical year, looked good, looked very normal, should have been a run-of-the-mill meeting. So went in, talked about the new project and everything like that. And it was fantastic. And then because as the conversation goes on, he just dropped a little nugget of something that he'd done. And I was like, hang on a minute. Let's just talk about that. Yeah. And actually if we had left it untouched, would have cost him, that client, it was 12 grand. Wow. Just one thing, because he went and done something, but he didn't think he needed to let me know. But by having those meetings and having that conversational point, stuff's moving about all the time. And it's for me to pick up, that's a little bit of nugget. I'll have that, hold that. And then I'll patch together this view. But because we've had that, literally we've jumped on it. We changed some things. We've updated some reports and action. And actually we've saved him more than that now, that it was going to cost him back the other way by swinging it back the other way. So I think, again, this is and coming to see a client's business like yours coming out, we get to see the business. We get to see, what's going on and stuff. Yep. Some people are a bit more confident in their own space as well than coming to the accountant. I always remember some people would be like scared of the tax man, therefore scared of the accountant. So when they come in, you can see them a little bit tense and stuff. You can see that build up. Yeah. And so for those meetings, I'll spend the first 10 minutes trying to relax people, just chatting about life, because you can just see them relax. And then when we give them information, they're ready to listen rather than going,
and assume it's going to be bad news. It's not.
And it's always nice to come out of the office. I love seeing people's like offices and space and stuff. So quite often my meetings will be out at clients because it's nice to go and sit.
No, I agree. And, you know, my experience when I moved over to you guys is that literally once a year, right, we need your documents.
Yeah.
Hand them over. They do the end of year accounts. It come through. I thought I understood it, but I'd missed something very important on it because I didn't understand it. And I'm like, guys, you knew this was the first time I was running my own business. Surely a bit of hand-holding would have helped. And I didn't get anything. And that was when I was recommended over to you guys. I've lost track of how many years ago now, but it's got to be 7 or 8 years ago, at least, I would say. I would sum it up, Graham, in the fact that as well as accountants, they're almost business advisors.
Yeah, totally. You need that. And, you know, speaking openly, both of you guys know this has probably been the toughest sort of 6-7 months ever. What we witnessed, for a bit of context, was we knew going into 2024 that we had to almost reshape our business. We had to work with the right people on the right things, to be seen as thinkers, not doers. And what that basically meant is saying goodbye to a lot of older clients, repurposing our messaging. But what that meant was that when the budget happened, when the change of power happened, everybody was just holding on to their purse strings. So our revenue went down. And then me trying to lead the organization was, okay, guys, just stand firm. We can do this. What it basically culminated to is in sort of like October last year, I had to make some of the toughest calls ever in my life. Long-standing people in the business, I had to let go. It's the first time ever I've made people redundant. Had to put personal reserves into the business. It was a really, really scary time, The comfort for me came through the numbers, through the plan. And, you know, the meeting yesterday, it's really, really fresh, was kind of like almost like a stamp of approval from the accountants that actually we've swung stuff the right way. I wouldn't have got through that period of time if I didn't have key pillars of support around there. These guys are definitely one of those pillars because they've been approachable. They've been there. Even if I didn't need to ask them a question, I just knew that they were there and that they'd have my back. But they understood the business. Yeah. They took the time to understand what we do. That has equally been a couple of referrals and stuff, which is great. And, most people that do networking, they say, people like your accountant should be sort of like the best people to network stuff for you. Well, that's true to an extent, but there's actually the right types of people. Yeah. So coming to Optimum was as much of a case of, I know that they can do this, in terms of the compliance piece, which has been brilliant. And they understand my business and how I operate as a business owner. So we went through some of the spreadsheets and stuff yesterday. Again, he validated them. That's great. Those formulas are right. Thank God. But equally, they're made of the same stuff. So, like a really, really little thing, we bumped into the cinemas, taking our kids to watch Sonic the movie.
That's right, yeah.
It's just really little things like that make a difference, Family Man, and those sort of things for me make a massive, massive difference.
And I think that's a key
Can I
one.
just go back to that bit? He was the most excited there to watch Sonic.
Oh, I know it.
I grew up on that game. I loved it.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
We're talking Mr. Superhero. Right?
He's probably there with his wife going, that guy over there, I don't know him. He's really loud. I don't know. Go on. But when people are motivated by those common things, that make you as a business owner get up, go to work, put your best foot forward and everything, and you've got that similarities. When you have those meetings, you just know that they get where you're coming from, and that's really important.
And we're human beings, that haven't been through this life before. I know some people have an argument to that one and say we have. I used to be a cow in a previous life.
A budgie.
Yeah, exactly. And I just used to smuggler. We're humans that are learning as we go. Yeah. And it's the question marks that we need to not have when we're busy, we're stressful, and we're trying to make this work. If the question marks are still there, we hear all the stories where a company stopped just on the precipice of success, let's call it, whatever that happened to be. And it's like you need to have those ticks to go, okay, we're going in the right direction, rather than go, do I need to change again? Do I need to change again?
I think that's and this goes back to ones we've done on the business plan. Without a plan, you don't know if you are that close to the end or if you're all the way down here. So if you have something that you're aiming for. So part of yesterday's meeting, when you were going through really proudly of sort of where you're looking to go with the business and stuff, was actually not to just go, yeah, lovely, that's great. Was actually, I wanted to quiz you on something. What do you mean by that? what's that figure and what's the aim there? Because I can know then that when we're joining in the meetings over the next year,
of course,
that's the journey we're going on because of this, this and this. Because sometimes people get an illusion of, I'm going to do this and it's for a payout or for this or for like a big ticket event that actually they're isolated on it rather than seeing the big picture of the whole thing. So quiz you on it. Got it. I understand the journey now. We'll make sure we're part of that journey.
Yeah. And I know you were saying earlier is that twice a year are sort of like the bare minimum vital ones. And for both of those, you are looking forward 6 months and backward 6 months.
Yeah, that's it. So any quote, any client, some client accountants will just do accounts tax return. That's it. Your bare minimum. Anything else is on top. Whereas I go, well, actually, I want the other things to become part of the core fee. So a pre-year end review. So typically after you completed 9 months, in month 10, we'll have a chat, see where things have been and where you're going. And then once you've got a few of in the way, when you got the one to do the year end account, say 4 or 5 months after the year end, it's a quick check. Yep. That's what it was. We thought it'd be this and we're a couple of grand different. So fine. Tick in a box. So that's done because that's the past and it was what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Then where are we going for the next 6 months? Then we get to the next meeting before the year end. So we thought we were going to do this. Where are we on there?
Yeah.
And it's just that whole point of looking forward, just not just looking backwards.
Exactly.
And it's creating opportunities. So you get the opportunities of, if you keep taxes are given. So
yeah,
if you know what you're taking over the next 6 months, you know how much tax to put aside. So therefore, when I go along the line and say, here's your tax bill, most people hopefully have either got it saved or are aware of it. Not everyone saves it, but they're aware of it and go, yeah, I know at that point. So I messaged Graham a couple of months ago just to say, just checking you got this tax bill on the horizon, on your radar. And you were like, yep, got it. That's great. That's the main thing. There's a tax bill coming that everyone knows and it's no shock.
No, exactly right. And then if there's a need to sort of like questions come up, is that to know that we can speak to them, I think is a big one. And one of the things that, apologies, very remiss of me, I didn't do, and I want you to now give us a synopsis of who Gel Studios are and a key point. And I'm going to go back to this changing of accountants, but I actually want to talk about where you have changed as a business over the last 6 to 9 months, maybe 12 months. I've lost track now.
Sure.
That has meant that there was a lot more questions and answers required and things like that. So what do Gel Studios do? Okay.
So we are a purpose-led full service creative agency. So, in essence, we do all the traditional stuff, websites, marketing, strategy, design, work with great people for video, plug. But essentially what our model is, purpose driven. So we work with organizations which are, unapologetically for profit. That comes in and that is then what fuels our bursary funding to help with the local community. We're proudly B Corp, which again is another sort of tick in the box in terms of that we're building something which is good. But yeah, we're in our 14th year of business. Probably taking really nicely onto your next point, what's changed is understanding the numbers and equally defining a goal. When I started the business, everybody said, make a business plan. And I was like, well, I'm creative. I don't need a business plan. I just want things to see. But ultimately, if you don't know where you're going, how can you measure yourself for progress? So certainly over the last, 9 to 12 months, like I said, sort of the beginning of like 2024, it was like, okay, Graham, what is it you really want to do? And that was helped with my mentor, James Phipps, background of philanthropy, background of the style of leadership, which is what I want to do. But with a really clear goal of doing good for people and for the community. So I knew that I really wanted to work with him for a long time. But he will sort of say, here's the black and white. So set a goal and work towards it. And we worked together to find out what those goals are and then essentially work backwards from them. So we got a goal for 5 years' time. We know the numbers that we want to hit. We know what we want to ideally sell for. It's up to me how much I want to put the foot down in terms of doing it and not. That's also then given me the confidence to understand what key hires come in. So we've kind of got like our first potentially 6-figure hire on the table, which is going to be transformational for the business. That's a scary, you look at that as a salary number as a business owner, that's scary. But when you actually look at the numbers, you understand the plan, You've got an accountant, who understands where you're going. You've built things responsibly. You've got good contracts in place. You've got all those things, then you can go for it. So in a nutshell, I've grown up a lot. As I sort of alluded to earlier, I've got a couple of scars, which I'm carrying for that now. And I think that any sort of person who's grown a business and had to shape a team and make the tough calls will probably understand where I'm coming from with that. But there's some things there which, I'm very sad about. But tied into the goal of the bigger that we get, the more good that we can do. That's what the driving force is. So, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And isn't it interesting how that works? I mean, we know that, Visual PR Productions, my company, is still in its infancy. 2 years this month, actually, that I've existed, as a thing. And so I'm going through the scale up challenges. Where I know that to grow my business, I need to spend on people, space, but to be able to afford that, I need to grow my business and, you guys to be able to sort of help and guide with that. But the reason why I bring that up is that, isn't it interesting, is that you've gone through a new scale up period.
Yeah.
What did you say? 14 years?
Yeah.
And yet because you've decided, do you know what? I want to change this a little bit. I'm going to say you got stayed, not in the negative way. You were doing the same thing month in, month out, year in, year out, and it was working, clearly.
It was working, but
it wasn't hitting your personal goals.
Yeah, so, there's this thing thrown around about glass ceilings in business.
Yeah.
You got the 1 million one, you've got the 3 million, you've got the 5 million. So there's a couple that I want to knock through. But there are fundamental challenges across all of them that you have to look at. So our fundamental challenge at Gel Studios was me. I would like to think I'm a nice guy, and that's resulted in Graham giving away lots of work. That's fine, because that's what makes me feel good. And part of my story is almost like a redemption arc to want to do good, to make my parents feel proud, to make my family members, proud of seeing what I do. The realization in my journey is that what I did was when I was a child, and I had a lot of growing up to do, and I've used that as a positive experience to now share with others. Now that I've got that confidence, and, I speak about that, it's still hard, shaking a little bit just going about it, because there's people out there that have never met me, don't really know much, they can draw their assumptions, whatever they like. But knowing that that can be spun into something which can inspire people, and knowing that I've created Gel to help more people, that's a really, really good thing. Yeah. But what did it manifest itself in? Let's talk numbers. Our hourly rates weren't right. So when we had our capacity and we were utilizing the number of members of team with the hours coming in, if our margins aren't of the right amount, then as we grow, our margins grow, the risk increases. Okay, so that's basically what we hit last year. So what did that mean? Having a company on a contract with 30 hours at a lower hourly rate is genuinely not as good as having a company that is paying a higher hourly rate on less hours. It gives you more capacity. Yeah. This is what I spoke about earlier. When you get that right, that's when you can start to build your margins in. What do you do with your margins? Reinvest them in the business. You can grow at a sustainable rate. You can put it into talent, everything with regards to the PAY increases and everything like that. If your margins are not right, you cannot capacitate for that. And then inflation, and then talent retention, and then anything else that you need to do. Okay. So that was a fundamental thing that we had to overcome. We sort of share numbers, but you were looking at them yesterday, and this plan is sort of in swing for the past couple of months. It's made a profound difference to what we're doing. It took a good year to get there, though. Mm-hmm. But now we're on the right trajectory with the right margins and everything. So
and I think what's key there is that over the 14 years, you knew the numbers, but didn't know it to that detail.
Yeah, totally.
What Graham was showing me yesterday of what he was going through, it's got really granular with the details. But because of that, you can see where the margins are.
Yep.
And we talk about with other things of like how many pence is going into paying your overheads. And it's just understanding that, so your margin. So yeah, you could be making a bit of money off the top, but if you're not creating enough selling enough hours, you're not going to cover the overheads. You're not going to make the bit at the bottom.
A busy fool.
Yeah. And that's totally it. And so when you start working from the bottom upwards with the figures and accounts and stuff like that, and it's getting to know the numbers and having the confidence to check them and to sound them out and talk to us about them as well. Exactly. But through knowing your numbers, you've done great, absolutely amazing job with it.
And it's what's then given you that vessel to, because I know you not just take pride, you're positively, emotional about being able to give back to charities and community.
Yeah.
Your resources to those is something that you are always phenomenally proud, understandably. And it's getting that right is what enables you to do more of that.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, in our journey at the moment, we've got a couple of clients which are in the charity sector. Charity sector, care homes, hospices in the recent budget have been absolutely steamrolled. So when we're trying to adjust organizations like that to new hourly rates, minimum amounts of hours and stuff, they're tough chats. So one analogy I have is a 0 to 100 miles an hour. Another thing sort of learned from James, he articulates it brilliantly. It's become part of our common language. We're not at 100 miles an hour yet. We're on our way. But when we look forward and we know where we want to go, when we're working with the organizations which are coming in bringing profit, those organizations and charities will 100% be bursary funded.
Yeah.
So when you look at the difference that you can then make to regional or national charities by 100% pro bonoing your work to them, and you look at the impact that that makes, is profound. Another thing that we did as well is we focused our efforts for 2025 because we had this goal for growth and the numbers and everything like that, is we aligned ourselves with one specific partner, Swindon Carers.
Yeah.
Their impact, they provide caring resources, training, respite, everything for 18,000 unpaid carers ranging from the ages of 6 to 92 just in Swindon.
Wow.
Just in Swindon. So when we look at what it does for us as a company culture, we've got a team of people that are like, go home from work, I've had a part to play in that. When you look at the impact in the local community, and it's like they're still surviving, they're helping because of our marketing efforts, all of that stuff is possible when you understand the numbers. Those numbers are validated, and you've got margins which enable sustained growth. When people think often when you do work for good, profit is a bad thing. Profit is not a bad thing. Profit shows that you're building something that's sustainable.
Yeah.
This is something I realized far too late. You've got to give away everything that you make, right? Because we're B Corp. We've got to do that. No, that's not the case at all. It's what you do with those profits that counts.
Yeah.
So that's where things like employee ownership's on the table. We do occasionally write traditional check donations, but the main thing is our value and our resource, which we give out to people because that can make much more impact than just numbers. But we can't do it if we're not running a profitable and sustainable business.
No, and I've kind of learned and have a passion myself is it's not even just, say, the charitable and community, is that I've got a real passion for micro business and early stage businesses. Yep. That, again, from experiences that you're going, I know that if I could have that service or whatever, it would help me go up.
Leapfrog.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you just can't, and it can kill, hence we get those stats, the amount of businesses that within the first 2 years just go pop because they can't get it. And it's like, okay, well, I want to be able to help. I have to sort of put a certain number, that I can do at any one time. But it's like, actually, it's the other business that facilitates me being able to do that at this absolutely ripped down, figure and things. And it is about giving back. And I love your phrase there about it's not about giving away the profit, it's about how you use them, and that's a key thing.
Totally.
I mean, the big one that I'm seeing here as well with your role, Mike, is as the company's role, is we're talking about how you listen and you advise and you look back, you look forward, but you've also got to be flexible in your understanding. At the moment, you understand Graham, you understand Gel Studios. You understand Graham and you understand Gel Studios now.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you know the 2026 version yet.
And that's the key of the conversations, is to keep sort of keeping up to date, keep checking things. And that's the important bit is keeping that open communication going the whole time. So it's all things of how do we make that easy? So like there was a bit yesterday where we look after and check your VAT return, check the bookkeeping and do all that. But at the moment, because Graham's focused on the numbers, he's doing quite a lot of it. He's worried that we're stepping on our toes. We're worried that we're not doing what we should be doing. but kind of just a simple check of, are you happy with how things are? Yeah. Okay. We'll just leave a vet to just check things in the background and we'll do it. And a vet went to me, last quarter and she's like, oh, Graham's filed the VAT return. What do you reckon I should do? I said, just go and check it.
Yeah.
I said, go and check it. If there's any adjustments, it'll pop on the next one. But just know that we're just quietly in the background, just going through and checking things. And that's it. So again, that was different to maybe what it was when we first met. But we'll just adapt. There's no one size fits all, I don't think, with any client really.
No.
When they're in the stages of business that you are, there are some that just come along. They don't want to speak to us. They don't want to, that's fine. And you have those ones. Exactly. You always do.
And I was going to say is for the sake of fairness is that I know that we said about, what happened previously didn't work. These guys are business advisors.
Yep.
To some people, they just want accountants that says, there's my figures. Give me what I need once a year.
Totally, yeah.
And that's fine. Yeah. But what I like is that, you guys, you can go and do that, but where you really enjoy your work is when you're rolling your sleeves up, you're getting the grey matter all fizzing and working with people. And we need to know that we can have those question marks quashed. We can be flexible. Like even me saying, you don't know what 2026 Gel and Graham is.
I don't know what tomorrow looks like.
No. but
wing that one.
I do, but I do. Yeah.
But that's what's exciting is that you go, do you know what? We can be flexible because how many times has it happened that you kind of go, now that that's happened, that actually whether it's diversification, whether it's acquisition, whether it's going the opposite way, that actually goes, do you know what? We can do this leaner. You never know what those changes can be, but it gives the confidence, it gives the insight, the up-to-date insight as well, because obviously we can have budgets, we can have whatever happening. You guys have the exciting existence of swatting up on all of that.
Get the book out, let's check it out. Yeah, that's it.
And the flexibility really was a really key decision. So we knew going in that we didn't want it just to be a invoice once a year kind of thing. So before we'd even sort of agreed what it was like, well, for me, it would work great if I can just budget per month what this is going to look like. And we came up with something which is a monthly amount, gives me the assistance that I want. And then, there's no surprises at the end of the year. I can budget for it. That works really well. And, just going back to that point about, how things change with Yvette doing some of our stuff, as I said earlier, the past couple of months for me, I have been logging on every day, looking at the numbers, seeing every invoice that comes through, everything that's been paid. That comes from a position of fear. When I went into the meeting yesterday, it was like, I've not stepped on your toes, have I? And I was greeted with compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
And when we think about traditional accountancy practices, we look at them as very binary. It's ones and zeros, it's the numbers, and that manifests itself in a lot of behaviors. This is people first, numbers second.
Yeah.
So another key point about our conversation yesterday was, I'm really into my cars. And we kind of went on a conversation. It was like, this is what a company car would look like. My ears pricked up. Ooh, hello. We're not going ahead with it, but what I took away, which was of real value, Mike was able to sort of say, you can enjoy some of this now. Yeah, I know you got your plan in 5 years' time and you can do what you want, obviously, after that plan. But actually, there's an element here where you can commercially benefit and you can actually have an element of enjoyment. Because it's no good in having a plan if you'd be burnt out halfway through it, right? Because you can't enjoy some of the stuff which comes with it. And, my responsible head went on. Carly was really surprised when I showed her the email. She was like, wow, wow, okay.
Responsible went on last night.
Yeah.
Not at the time.
Well, no. Say an M5 as a plug-in hybrid and you can get a thing. You're like, okay, fair enough. Yeah. But my point is, that was one really great example of the difference. It's not a numbers thing. It's a case of building something that's sustainable, making sure that you yourself are, in it for that. And there are elements where you can enjoy stuff. And he got that. And I got that in that moment. And yeah, it was nice to go and have a little look and everything. But what it also did is it firmly then dialed in my goal of how determined I am towards my goal. So it was like a little and the time, it was like a little test. It was good.
Yeah. When's the right time and all of that.
And we did. We put a pin in it for a year and we'll have a chat then.
We'll check it out. Yeah. And I think, again, it's just knowing it, isn't it? It's understanding
exactly.
Rather than it being, and you ask questions at different times. It's like, it's just there, it's just burning away, it's just bugging me. Can I just put it to bed or follow it through and just tick, done, right, I go back to the normal bit.
And there'll be questions that I'll end up asking now that I've never thought about because it was never relevant, but the changes, the growth or whatever suddenly makes me go, oh yeah, what about this? Because it was never on my radar before, and it is that whole thing. What about things, I mean, we heard Graham there talk about, and I've always known that it's one of his goals that may not happen, but it's a goal, is the employee ownership thing. And I mean, that's very popular these days. You know, I was working with like NSBRC that are employee owned. You would get involved in that as well?
Yeah, we would definitely help with sometimes all of it, depending on the size, the scale, and the magnitude. But we can definitely hold the conversations to start with of that initial bit of these are some of the things you need to think of. These are shaping up how to do it, and it comes down to sort of trying to find the staff that aren't just employees. And yes, I don't mean that in a derogatory term. Like some people are just very much happy to do the hours, go home and not think back again. Whereas others just want that little bit more. And it's trying to find those ones. So there's no point putting someone who's a 9 to 5, just very sort of, I'm done. I've done my hours.
I don't want to think about it.
I've worked really hard for you. I've got what I needed. I've helped out someone. I've got paid. Right. There's no point putting them into a position of responsibility because you'll fail them. And so part of what we'll do is just talk about, right, so you've isolated these people, we've done this, done that, right, tell me, and go through sort of the people and the characteristics of it and understand them. And then we go through like sort of some of the tax differences and stuff.
And that's a key one for me is that I know that the employee owned, body will have all sorts of advice and everything for you, but to then get away from them that, no disrespect, I'm sure they're going to be slightly biased to their methodology. And that's not in a derogatory way. They just are going to be. And you know, you're going to get independent advice and what have you as well. And an extra set of eyes. And it's just nice to know that's there. Whether you use it or not is then up to us as business owners.
And this is what getting to know the business is all about, right? So the reason why I'm planning on doing it or a version of it is to reward the people for being with us on that journey. And that includes people past, present, and potentially in the future. When you look at, you know, most of the, you know, employee owned things that are out there, they're consultancies at the moment. So they're going to come straight in and look at it as a meal ticket. You know, this is a service-based piece of work. They're not going to ask the question, is that right? You know, employee ownership is one route. Management buyout is another. Selling the business is another. It's understanding what I want to do and then exploring it with a trusted partner like these guys to be able to just understand it at top level so you can go into these conversations and you've got a bit of that knowledge. I'm kind of one of the people that likes to get the devil in the details. That's just kind of my personality. I like to do that. So knowing that I can absorb that information and then make, you know, my decisions, and there's opinions which have been put over which are valid, and look at some of the areas which I'm not aware of, like the tax efficiencies and stuff. That's what makes the difference.
Conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to something you brought out early on, changing accountants. You know, that can feel like a very daunting and possibly even go, do you know what? Forget it. Let's just stay with where we are. You know, talk us through that.
So you don't really know what you don't know until you've done it. So like the gift of looking back is great. And, you know, we've spoken today about, you know, the sort of two ends of the spectrum. We've got the people which are just, you know, let's deal with the accounts and let's make sure we're compliant. But then I'm not one of the people that wants that. I kind of have built everything from nothing. And I kind of take an element of satisfaction and comfort in things being validated by external professional parties. Getting something that's just submitted at the end of the year doesn't do it for me. Having a meeting once a year where the tax planning advice is basically where you got some cash, you just want to put it into a stakeholder pension. That's not it for me. It doesn't show that there's the journey.
Especially with all the changes you were starting to think about as well. Totally. And it's like, you know, do I feel able to have those kind of conversations?
there was nothing wrong with my previous accountants at all. Completely fine at doing what they did. But when we looked at things like, we tried a monthly service and we had to change our process quite significantly to match what their stuff was. That didn't really work. There were processes that we were doing which were exaggerated, which resulted in more time and frustration. Came over here, and there's that great product you do, which is almost like insurance, isn't there, for like when we put stuff through. So if there ever is anything or there's an inspection, it's covered. I mean, it's just like, that's brilliant. That thing on its own, off the back of asking the guys, how should I do it? That saves me hours a month just on one little thing. So it was kind of like, this is becoming frustrating. At this time, I delegated our finance function to somebody inside the team. It was just, you're just paying them, I'm paying that person there. Like, what's going on? I need to unstitch it. So some of the gift of going through that sort of immense pain was me being like, right, what do I really want? What do I really want here? And actually, one of the first decisions was to commission these guys to do monthly pieces of work for us, because it just worked, and everything had to start from the numbers and work upwards from there. So it was like a, fight the fear or whatever they call it, to do it. But then actually, once I sent the email, that was kind of it. And actually what I witnessed, and actually it was a great email. Everything kind of went over and it was fine. But it was kind of like, we kind of felt that it wasn't right either. So then I was kind of like, well, how long did you, I didn't say it, but it was like, how long did you feel that then? Because I know I've been feeling this for about a good couple of years, right? And if you've been feeling it too, then if that was a client for us, again, based on what I told you in terms of saying things aren't right for us with clients, I'd have raised it. Yeah. So then I felt like a number.
It's fear the other way though, isn't it?
And it further just validated the decision to move. Yeah. So all I would say is that have the email, send the email, have the chat with the accountant at the moment, and at the first port of call, just ask, do you feel that we're a good fit for you? I mean, there's plenty of accountancy practices and stuff out there. From my experience, there's not many which have this approach with people first. No. And that is what I value immensely from going through what I'm going through.
And in fairness, and it is being devil's advocate, is that you hit on a key point there, is it's not just that, an accountant's done it quote unquote wrong. It's like, no, you weren't a good fit for them anymore.
Yeah, and there's an element of accountability I take on that, again, looking inwards on what I've been through the past sort of 6 months. A lot of this, if not all of it, is on me. As I said, I started my business from a position of wanting to kind of do some redemptions, do some good stuff. So that meant that I would not have some of those tough chats. I'd take that on my shoulders, metaphorically speaking. I wouldn't have the conflict. Who am I to have conflict? I'm just happy these people are working with me. Having the tough chats is needed. And, it's one of those things, learning to say no. It's like a muscle in business. You've got to practice it. But when you can get it, it's a very powerful thing to use. But I'm very glad that I did it. And look, we're learning. Even though I've been doing this like this amount of time, I still feel like I'm learning new stuff every day.
I agree.
And I've learned a lot in a very condensed amount of time. But I definitely feel it makes me a better leader because of it. But equally, like I said, some of the scars that you carry are hard. And so you sort of,
it makes you stronger, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
When you get those choices coming up again, you kind of see them coming a little bit more.
It's just great learning opportunities.
I know that last time I'd done it, it hurt at the time, but it was better after. And it's just trying to learn by those experiences. Yeah. You have to do it, and you can't ignore them. You have to see them spin them into a benefit. Isn't it, the things that have gone through?
I try to. Maybe it would take me a little bit more time to be a bit more sageful with it. But it's just one of the things.
Do you think it goes back to when we're young, and you kind of go to reach that? Oh, that hurt.
Yeah, put your finger in the fire, and
you're interested again, and like that hurt. Yeah, and then you kind of go, hang on.
Problem is when you're weirdly drawn to fire, though. Don't know why.
And of course, now it means looking at the list. So tax planning for accounts, personal, cars, management accounts, payroll review, VAT review, and it has become that you've moved the whole kit and caboodle over. So from your perspective, just pick, because I think it's an interesting topic that Graham and I have both been through, that change accountants, that there can be an overwhelm of what lies ahead, and apathy must be your worst nightmare. Is that forget it. Do you know what? Let's just stick with what we're doing. Yeah. But what does it involve? Because I got to be honest and say, I don't remember it being a headache at all.
No, I think a lot of people fear because they've been with accounting 10, 15 years or so, and it's, but they've got all my background. They know all this information. How do you get all that? And it's like, so the process goes, we'll essentially give you the words to write.
Yep.
You send them an email, job done. That's your bit.
That is it.
We then go to the accountant, check, get the information, get the previous years. Now, the fear that people have of not knowing the background and not knowing that, not the history, that's where I think us here at Optimum are great at, is that because we have those conversations, so we would have already had a conversation first to meet and greet and go through and understand what it is we're quoting for and providing, because it's not a one size fits all. It is right, what do you need? What works for you guys?
Yeah.
But we are gathering information from the minute, getting a picture, understanding the background, understanding where things have come from, bits in the past. Most software and most accounts are in softwares now. So we'll have a look over the past few years. What's there? And to be honest, most of the time, there isn't these big bits and nugget that happened 10 years ago that we need to know about, because that was the past. It's all dealt with.
Yep. Yeah.
And
the important bits will still be visible now. If they were important to know, they will still be visible.
They'll be around. Anyway. That's it. Yeah. And so things like tax relief on like property assets, bits like that, we can see that in 2 reports that they sent over. They've either claimed it or they haven't. Fine. If they haven't, we can deal with it. If they have, great. We know. And so actually with how we digest the information, there's so much that comes across that that is the history that we can digest in no time at all. But from a point of what you guys got to do, literally, here's an email. Thanks very much for everything over the years. I'm moving to Mike, moving to Rob, moving to Hannah. Like, we're moving over to Optimum. And that's it. We go and get it on. We get logged into Xero, QuickBooks, whatever software. We have a little scan through. We tend to appoint someone else in the team on the day-to-day. So like for yourself, you had a vet. The vet goes in once a day, just quickly checks things over, just tidies up anything that's not done, he hasn't done already at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we go and we finish. And like then when there's something else, so a vet will let me know if there's something that she sees that's like, oh, it doesn't feel quite right here. Go and have a look. And then we've got the definite 2 points that we always have a look at. And let's face it, in business, 6 months goes like that.
Yeah.
So it seems like some people go, well, I want to meet more regularly. And we can do that. We can do it. We can facilitate quarterly meetings and bits like that. But actually in a fast moving business, 6 months is still quite good.
We've just backed that up by, we said 9 months. I'm like, what? I thought it was only a couple of months ago.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so like in that time, we've actually had 3-4 meetings in that time. They seem quite spaced out. So I was thinking when we were doing this one, I was like, oh, actually, I haven't seen you for a while. But actually it was actually closer than you think. But the story's still there. We're still following the same path.
Exactly right. And I am conscious that, of course, I said that, I'm delighted that Visual PR Productions is 2 years old this month. And yet I've been with you guys for 8-9 years. That might confuse some people, but of course I've got Open Doors training, my public speaking. I've got my media, well, of course. And I've got my media company where I do my motorsports commentating and all of those crazy things. So, it's been that evolution with those things. And there lies another thing, is that you could have people with multiple businesses or multiple trading and things like that. And you guys are able to bring that image together for, I don't want to have to now have multiple hats on. I'm going, I still need just one conversation in reality. And you're able to facilitate that.
And just a self-plug for that. So one of the things I've done with another client recently, where they've had all these different businesses, is he wants to bring in certain figures in to share with the team, right? But naturally showing the full profit and loss to the team gives the wrong information, because people get excited. They see numbers and think, oh, wow, look at all that. They won't remember the journey. They won't remember what the investment. So that happens. But understanding that client worked out that actually this is what he needs to see.
Yeah.
But we can facilitate the top line. So we talked before about like concrete companies, how many cubic meters they sell, how many pints in a pub they sell, and bits like that. And again, we're translating that language down to the user to go, right. I work with a photographer, and it's like, right, so you need to do this many wedding photographies in a year, this many family shoots in this, and that will be the combination you need.
Yeah.
And literally you can just tick them off and stuff. And so but you're already doing that. yourself without us, because you've gone through and worked out time, projects, reoccurring income, this and that.
Yeah.
And it shows what the power of that information is, because you can take it down to your language and give you the comfort rather than it being this massive figure. So like with certain companies, you say, oh yeah, you've got to turn over £300,000 a month. Oh my days, that's massive. You roll it all the way back to the units you're selling. Oh, I could do that in 2.5 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But I like the fact there was a story without, I'm not going to give too much of the information away, but it was a membership based business, and they had the, you know, like you were saying about you start, whether it's 5 years or whether it's that's my goal, whatever, and you work backwards from it. And I like that as advice, because I fell into a trap for ages of looking forwards to it, and you'll never get it. Whereas work backwards, and they had figures, I think it was, in mind. And you said, okay, to do that, you do realize that you would need this many memberships. And then they realized it wasn't possible. It isn't possible. And so it needed to relook, whether it's looking at the figures, like you've done a big thing, exercise over the last, what is it now?
Well, we've always had a thing on the figures. It's just how you put it together. So I'll do a plug now. It's basically when, you know, understanding what customers' goals are and then translating them backwards. And that's fundamentally the difference of when you go to other agencies and they're like, well, it's £500 a month, £1,000 a month. And then you know you're going to fail before you even started. What you need to do is put the brakes on, understand the business, understand the journey, understand where they want to go, agree on what success looks like, and then work back a plan. So there is no one size that fits all. And that exact approach is exactly what you guys do. And that's why that synergy and stuff is right there.
How do you, and it does still apply to obviously, Optimum's business in the way, but focusing on what you've just said there, I'm going to wrap up in a second, but interesting that you made that comment that says, it's not just right, it's X hundred a month or whatever it is that you kind of go, what is the ultimate goal, right? How are we going to get there? How are we going to repeat it? Work backwards. How do you manage to arrive at that? Now, if I thinking as a business owner that says, right, I know for my business, I want to get there. My brain's going, right, how do we work backwards from that? I don't get.
So we do several workshops. One of them is a goal setting workshop. So I'm just going to, on the fly, go off of your example of the photographer. Okay. So photographer have a number in their mind about what they need to do. We will then understand what their product looks like. We will then understand what budget they have for marketing. What we can do through our industry knowledge, expertise, and diversity of clients is a client might come to us and say, I've got £1,000 a month. I know that I need my website to be optimized. What we can say is that, okay, that makes sense. I understand where you're coming from. Well done. But what we actually see is that £1,000 could be spent on something completely different to yield you a greater return. So that's the exercise in a nutshell that we go through. And normally that's what happens. We're in a commercialized world where, you know, Helga from the 1-in-1 adverts or whatever it is comes on board. Beautiful website. I don't do impressions. That's awful. But, and don't put that anywhere. God, that's the last thing I need. But they sell the now. They don't sell how, you know, what to get to and what success looks like in the future. That's normally what we find in our industry we're up against. People come in, I know I need that. Why do you know? Because I've seen a TV advert. It's credible, right? Okay. But when we break it down, we have lost clients because we're like, well, I can't give you a price now. I can give you a range, but I can't give you a price. Why? Because we need to go through the discovery. We need to go through the workshop. Your industry is completely different. Something like paid advertising might be fundamentally different for a florist than it is for, say, a photographer or something like that. If we don't do the goal setting, we can't agree on what success looks like. If we can't agree on what success looks like, we're consciously going into an arrangement which has a finite expiry date on it. And we're all about long-standing, mutually beneficial relationships. That is, in a nutshell, how we answer that.
And equally, I could be sat here dissatisfied going, it's not giving me what I need. And it's like going,
because you didn't know what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
To know that you're aiming for the same end goal.
And the reason why I brought that up, as well as it being, I think, a great opportunity to talk about Gel Studios and what you guys do, but there's some great synergy in terms of Optimum in the fact that it might not be a creative, And what people do think, well, it's just numbers. It's that's coming in, that's going out. I'm going to owe that. It's like, no. There is an artistic, creative side to it.
Some clients will go for profit maximization. How much money can I get? I want to rinse it for everything. Yeah. I want to pay for the holidays. I want 4 holidays here. And other people go, actually, I need this amount to live on. That will make me very comfortable, but I need time with the kids. Right. So before I had kids, I was probably more on the profit, like earning more, making more, driving the business. Have kids, you suddenly realize, actually, no, there's a different thing here. So I spoke to a client, they want to take on someone else. It pushes them through to the VAT threshold, which means the turnover goes up again. Yeah. And I'll go, right, so you've got to do all that to stand still, to bring all these extra costs on. What's that doing for your journey? Is it is it getting towards where you want to be? Or is it just adding a whole lot of stress? So like with my wife's business, the shop we hoped it's going to turn well, and it's growing and it's doing well, but it wasn't just about the finance of the business. What qualitative factors does it bring by having the shop? And like different investment opportunities, what's growing the business? What else does it bring? Yeah. So you can't just play a book with someone. I've got someone who takes out money to put in a savings account, pays higher rate tax, right? Which to me is like, why are you doing that? Just leave it there and take it if you need it. There's your savings account in there, right? When it's in his savings account, in his personal account, he sleeps. When it's in the business account, he doesn't sleep.
I get that.
So I get that. So a tax bill is not, is the fact that I'm going there going, well, it's not very tax efficient doing that. I could do that, but then he's not going to sleep. Yeah. So actually, and I spoke about it a couple of years, this was years ago now, a couple of years we went through the same thing. And I got then that actually this is a non-financial thing. He's very happy to keep paying the tax bill because over here he's very, very comfortable. And it's all those little bits of, you really got to understand someone and what the motives are.
Health changes come in. I know we've had conversations with people in the past that has suddenly changed what the priority is. And it is about seeing what that is. And you mentioned tax there. You know, you're retired patriarch of Optimum and regulatory accounting as it used to be before that, Richard Matthews. I remember him always telling me, don't chase the dragon. If you've got to pay tax and be proud that you've been successful enough to have
100%,
to.
Yeah.
You know,
well, maybe not 100%. But,
it's like when I send a tax return out, I never put the words, are you happy for this to be filed? Sign this if you're happy. But if you're content.
It's the same as the other one I get through, is that going, is this correct? And I'm like, I don't know. If you're telling me it is, I'm happy. It's always the other one. Listen, guys, I think it's fair to say we could carry on. I think we need to do another episode that is your idea, where we've got ales on the table instead, and let's set the world to right.
Give it a go, won't we? If you say so,
it's the Optimum goggle box. Optimum goggle box. That's almost what we're talking about.
We'll get a few turn up to that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that with the budget. That's a great idea.
It's a good idea, that one. But no, we could carry on talking for ages. Mike, thank you for your input from the service provider perspective, in more than just being accountants, but about that business advice and the dynamic, constantly moving, looking and working with and getting to know us as clients. Graham, thank you for sharing the journey. You know, one that, as I've said, I can relate to, but on a smaller scale, earlier scale as well. And such that unique bit with everything that you guys are doing at the moment, which is really exciting. I can never remember, is it Gel-Studios or Gel Studios?
Just Gel Studios.
I thought so. gelstudios.co.uk.
That's the one,
to go and check out that. Obviously with you guys, it's optps.co.uk, as in Optimum Professional Services, which does include not just accountancy and tax, but also legal as well, conveyancing, and we did a previous episode on that, etc. So go and check out those guys as well. Well worth it. Thank you for coming in, Graham. Hopefully that's made perfect sense to everybody, and maybe it's resonated. Something there has made you kind of go, that's relevant to me. If you've got any questions at all, my best advice, and Graham will echo me on this, I'm sure, is reach out. Nothing's a silly question.
No, that's the whole point. Have the confidence to speak to us. Happy to just talk it through.
Even if it doesn't go with you guys, is have that conversation at this stage. Get rid of those question marks, isn't it?
Totally. And come along to one of their breakfasts.
Yeah, definitely.
8th of April.
Yep, 8th of April, free networking breakfasts here. Yeah. And then the other month is at the Cheltenham office as well. So yeah, they are good, aren't they? Because it's relaxed. There's no stand up and do a 60-second pitch or anything like that. It's just chat with everybody. It's really, really nice, and lovely bacon rolls. Gents, thank you so much. Brilliant episode 16. Keep your eyes peeled for what we're going to do for episode 17. I believe we've got Rob Stokes. Yeah, Rob's going to be with us while you're swanning off for a little bit. And we need to rethink May now, because it's not you next May.
I've got a plan already.
Oh, I like it.
Ahead.
I'm impressed. So you bring out the best.
See?
You bring out the best in him. That's the great thing. We'll see you next time for episode 17. Cheers.